thank you very much for having me. I'm Schrader. I'm the founder of the 24-Hour Race. Today I'm here to talk to you about why nobody cares about you except Mom. Okay, so I want to start out by asking you a quick question over here. Can we have a show of hands for anybody who has a problem, has a worry on their mind right now? Okay, look for the people around you who don't have their hands raised. You'll find the liars very quickly. So pretty much everyone in here has problems, worries that they're consistently dealing with. So I want to give you 4 alternative facts about worries. The first one is, the more you worry, the more you're going to solve your problem. So don't worry, if you're staying awake at night, if you can't sleep, worry more, and your problems are obviously going to disappear. The second thing is, your problems, everyone else around you, nobody has a complex life like you. Nobody's ever been bullied, loved someone who hasn't loved them back, no one's ever got an F, no one's failed, no one's worried about university applications, no one's ever fought a war, no one's ever worried about standing up to a regime. Your problems are unique to you and they're the most important in the world. Don't worry, humans live forever. You've got you've got infinity to procrastinate, dealing with your doubts, postponing your dreams. There's no need to deal with them today because we all know no one dies. And finally, we're all waiting for you to fail. None of us have our own family, our own friends to worry about. Our lives aren't complex. We're all waiting for you to trip over and we're going to be there to film it when it happens. For those of you not familiar with sarcasm, this could be potentially a very dangerous thing to say. The whole point is, everybody around us has complex lives. But growing up in Hong Kong, it's very easy to feel like you're the center of the universe. For me, I spent 18 years growing up here in a very structured environment. If you need extracurricular activities, everyone's around here to support you, whether it's your parents, your teachers. You can easily get away with feeling like you're the center of the universe. And going from this entirely structured environment, I wanted to try something completely different. So I sat my final IB exam, got on a plane to Western Mongolia and started walking 1,600 kilometers across the Gobi Desert. I figured that was the way I would be able to tell what it's like to survive on my own, to survive thinking I was the center of the universe. Every day I lost something. Initially it was the presence of the internet, being able to talk to people, feeling valued, a sense of belonging. Then it was the relationships faded into distant memories. I hadn't spoken to my friends, my family, acquaintances, what became weeks and then months. Then it was my sense of dignity, things like hygiene, health. All of these things slowly got compromised. And it got to the point where we were halfway across the desert and deep down south, almost in China. We sort of zigzagged our way. We had these old Soviet maps that we would use to find the nearest water source. So rather than walking from point A to point B, we'd go via a watering well. Maybe 1 in 3 or maybe 1 in 4 of these wells was actually still existed and had water that we could drink out of it. And due to a series of bad coincidences, we were running out of water. In the desert, running out of water means everybody had less than a liter each, which is potentially deadly. So after losing my friends, everything that I had come to rely on the last 18 years, I basically felt like an animal in the desert. It got to this tipping point where we didn't have any water left. And so I went with one of our nomadic guides, who became a great friend of mine, to go find water. We rode on camels up north. And everything seemed to be going well. We finally spotted a nomadic home. We thought we were going to be able to find this water and get back to our route. When suddenly my camel panicked, flipped me off, flew 2 meters in the air, and then hit the ground. And what camels do when they panic is they look for the nearest non-camel and they just try and trample all over it. So I was thinking, oh my God, this is a terrible way to die. It's going to look terrible on my gravestone, trampled by camels. And sure enough, got trampled by camels, was knocked out, woke up a couple of hours later, and I was alive. And I could see my friend trying to run across the whole desert, gathering all these camels, and then scattered around the whole desert. And I remember in the evening feeling very, very emotional. I think everything had built up to this point where my life had been on the line. I recommend near-death experiences, by the way, just don't fully commit. And I had this epiphany where, my life I felt like it was almost over, but the sun set, the stars came out. I remember looking out there thinking 250 billion different galaxies with billions of stars in them. There's no other human being out there like me. It's a sense of loneliness. What a waste of space. We're the only people on this tiny little planet here. But also, what are all my problems? What's even a near-death experience like, given the immensity of the universe? Don't worry, you don't have to walk across a desert to come to this experience. I took this photo a couple of weeks back. Does anyone know where it is? Iceland? Someone say Iceland? Okay, shut up. Bad guess. Long Key 1. This is Hong Kong. If you want to experience, I find putting your worries in context, understanding that the universe doesn't care about you. One easy way to put everything in context is to go camping for a weekend with friends, which I try and do every 2 weeks. The second thing I want to talk to you about is why society doesn't care about you. We established that in the grand scheme of things, the universe doesn't care about you. That can be sobering and help put your problems in context. What about society? I mean, think about us, right? How many of you are doing the IB in this room? So you're already doing something insane that society is made you do or has inspired you to do. For me, it was a 24-hour race. A lot of you have heard of the 24-hour race, but at the time when we initially came up with this idea, everybody thought it was a terrible idea. In fact, I remember distinctly pitching various administrators, PE instructors at different schools in Hong Kong and telling them, your students get to run 24 hours non-stop on their free weekend, possibly missing clock and flap, to raise funds for slavery. And I got laughed out the door, right? I mean, all of these people couldn't imagine their kids running cross country, let alone giving up an entire weekend to run 24 hours. In fact, I even asked you guys, I remember in 2010, speaking to students and saying, hey, does the idea of running 24 hours on a free weekend sound cool? And people were like, yeah, no, it doesn't really sound cool. Everybody said it was a terrible idea. On top of that, when people heard the word slavery in 2010, no one was thinking it's a pervasive problem here in Asia, everyone was thinking of the North American slave trade. It was a historical problem. That's not an issue we need to address. And finally, I was 16, I had no background in business, I'd never set up an event in my life, and they expected me to put together a relatively complex event. What did we do? We didn't care. We went ahead with it. We didn't care what society said we should do, what expectations were, and we struggled. You know, for 6 or 7 months, not a single team committed. We kept at it, we kept at it, we kept at it. Eventually, one school committed. It might even have been Southland School, which was the first school. And then another one, and then another one. And then 7 years later, we had 70 schools participating in the event last year. Thousands of runners from around the world, raising millions of dollars to support grassroots causes. Now it all made sense. Now society, if you like, accepts the idea. You guys will happily take part in the idea. Some of you will be directors of the races themselves. But back then, it didn't make sense. And I wonder what it would have been like if I would have listened to everybody's advice and I would have dropped the idea or chosen something much simpler. It would have had the impact on slavery and on people's lives I think it has today. I want to make one more further point. This is me at the last 24-hour race. A year ago, I was in Singapore, and I was going from 10 to 10. I really enjoy the anonymity. Most people don't know who I am anyway, so they don't know I was a founder, for a while the CEO, I'd see important. So I was going from 10 to 10, speaking to students and asking what they thought of the event, how we can improve it. And eventually, some parent called the police because they saw this guy who was clearly too old to be a high school student going from 10 to 10, chatting up 13 to 16-year-olds at 9 p.m. So eventually, thank God there was a race organizer who recognized it and said, don't worry, it's not a big deal. But my question to you is, if you choose work to do, if you follow your passion, can you do so and be completely anonymous, get no recognition for what you've done, and still feel a real sense of achievement? Because it's so tempting to do what society wants to reward us for. It feels good when you get that A and you get into that dream university because everybody tells you it's a good thing. For me, I don't need that to be able to function and to be able to feel satisfied and gratified with my work. And I would challenge you guys to think about that. Could I do this if I absolutely received no recognition for it from anyone? Which leads me to my third and final point. If society doesn't care about you, what about people? Well, people care about you, but they don't always have your best interests at heart. I love this quote. It's by Friedrich Nietzsche. And it's the idea that at an individual level, we're all perfectly fine, but as societies, we're insane. We've seen a lot of insanity in the last couple of months in terms of politics. But you know, when we work together in groups, we all know that one friend we have who's a great person on their own and they're a total douche when they're with other people, right? Insanity. Society creates insanity. I went in the time after the Gobi Desert, I decided I wanted to go live with nomads for 3 months. So got out the Gobi Desert, took a few months to earn some cash here in Hong Kong, and I went out to the Gobi again to go live with nomads. And on my way up there, I took the train from Hong Kong up to Beijing. I wrote my university apps for America, I applied, and then I went to live with nomads for 3 months. And then I came back and I had all these offer letters, and I got into some fantastic universities, Harvard, Stanford, Yale. And so I had this luxury of choosing where to go. Of course, I wanted to go to Stanford. My grandfather said he'd disown me if I didn't go to Harvard. So I went to Harvard. And did a year and a half there, had an amazing experience, loved it, met some of the most inspiring and influential friends I had. But in the space of a few days, I decided to leave. I took what's called an indefinite leave of absence. Essentially, I dropped out. Now, to my friends, to my parents, to acquaintances, to a lot of angry parents in Hong Kong, I made a terrible decision. I should have waited it out 2.5 more years and I would have had a Harvard degree. But here I am talking to you at a TEDx event. Last night I was talking on another panel and I'm flying to San Francisco to give another panel next week. I work with the most brilliant people today. My co-founder Zach, humble, intelligent, inspiring, funny. All the colleagues I have, I feel like we're working together on a real important cause, and our business is really important in terms of the community. I felt comfortable dropping out of Harvard because I have a very strong personal mission. And that guides me more so than whatever people around me suggest I do. And that's probably the toughest lesson I can give you, is identifying your own self-mission. What is it that's guiding you in your decision-making process? Because then deciding to stay at Harvard and finish a degree or drop out becomes an easy decision, as easy as it was for me. I still don't look back at it with any kind of regret. These are the fantastic people I work with. So in conclusion, what do you do in a world that doesn't care about you? Well, if the universe doesn't care, don't worry. Put your problems and your worries in perspective. You're lucky to be breathing. You're lucky to look up the sky. There's this fantastic quote, which is, humans are the way for the universe to appreciate itself. We're the only sentient beings, as far as we're aware, who can actually look up the stars and go, man, that's terrific. Put your problems in context. Don't forget, you're not on your own. When society doesn't care, listen. Respect what people around you are saying. Respect societal norms. But don't always obey. There's a difference between honoring your parents and obeying your parents, for example. There's a difference between respecting what other people have to say and giving them a platform to speak on, and obeying them without even questioning that. And we know that throughout history, and now is a very relevant time to talk about this, people who decide to go with the flow, go with society, often are on the wrong side of history. So think carefully, think critically. Listen, but don't obey. And finally, if people don't care, be mission-driven. Think about what it is you want out of life. What's the impact that you want to create? And let that make your decisions. Thank you very much for listening.